and we've got a little job to do which involves making good existing door linings. We're making them good because they're not that old, and to take them out is sometimes just more damaging, it's time consuming, and it's unsustainable if you ask me. But where these frames have had different doors changed and reapplied over the years, we've got all of these cutouts from the ironmongery. There's a terrible one here which is from an old sort of country latch that used to lock in, but he had them the wrong way round, so therefore these should be on the face of the lining. They shouldn't be hacked in like that, and besides it's such a bad job. We've got also, when they did that, they left out the existing keeps from the old doors. They didn't splice them in or anything like that. So Ed, what are you doing?
Sanding off all the old paint and grip fill, making a bit of a flat surface for when we come around and do the next bits.
Exactly, yeah. You've basically got rid of all the old fixings and everything like that. So,
yeah, a few old pads nails and whatnot.
I think that's the thing. It's about getting set up. So what we're going to do is really simple job. Years ago, I used to do this a lot. Sash windows. We used to repair door frames, door linings, doors, and it was a matter of finding some softwood or hardwood, as the case may be, and forming a small section that you're going to put in. You hold it over, you mark round it, and then you chisel and knife and all the rest of it, and you clean it out and you glue it back in, let it go off, and plane it back. Now that was quite time consuming. Indeed, I'd sort of think it was about half an hour to 45 minutes to do one decent chop out like that. Now, with the use of palm routers, machine tools, this is a lot more simple, and it makes doing this viable. So we've got about 15 of these splices to do. We've got the old hinges, we've got the old keeps for the locks, and we've got these great big messes that we're going to do there. Then following that, we're going to run up a 3mm strip of softwood, which we're going to glue and pin all the way around the edge, set back slightly, and that's so the guys can reskin these rooms without that horrible kick on the architrave. So you carry on, Ed, get all of these bits and pieces done. I'm going to knock up a template out of some spare material here. In fact, I've done some earlier templates. This is for cable entries through some wall panels. So I'm going to make up a simple device to mark everything up, then a router, then I'll glue in our pieces. We'll do them all first. We'll do all of them in a series, if you like, get them fixed, and it's a nice job, and clean them all back. So this is probably the largest of the pieces that I need to sort of form, but as I've got so many to do, all these hinges here, so I'm going to actually make all of my splice sections that go in all exactly the same. My template will be the same. It'll be one template, one lot of splices. It'll be a matter of coming in here, knocking them all out and getting them done. So I'm going to go out to the table saw, make up the things now. It won't take very long. Get back in here and fix them all. So that forms the basis of what I want to run a cutting tool against. Either the palm router with a template bit, or even put this on, you can use a knife to score against it, or a multi-tool, just get you around. If you haven't got a palm router and you've got a multi-tool, this might be a perfect solution. Or indeed, you could use this as a chisel guide if you are doing that by hand. But the idea is, all of the little cutout pieces that we make will fit in. Now, what we need to do is make a load of these up. So this is just some softwood offcuts I've got, and as we'll be planing them back and cleaning them up in situ, they don't need to be prepared, because we'll do that in place. So that's the one I made to decide how big to have it, but the actual ones I'll be making for the job will be just a touch longer, so therefore I've got a little bit more so they can actually fit, because this is it's just slightly under. Now to get over that is you just plane off a bit off the back here until it fits back. So that's it. Let's get on and do those and route them out. So I've got all the bits and pieces we need. We've got the bits we're going to splice in. We've got the small profiling template, either for marking out and doing by hand, or using a router, or even a multi-tool. So I might pop a couple of screws in here where the stops will be, so I can just mount this on really quickly and easily, and we can pretty much clean everything out in one go. So I'm just going to drill a couple of holes in here, down where the centre of the lining is effectively, which means that I can attach it, because it's where the stops will go, so they're never going to be seeing these holes. Get that one here. Eddie's going to get out the router and a cutter. So there we go, we can go from both sides. Now we're going to use the same router bit in this as I use in my hinge jig, so it's going to follow exactly that profile. With regards to the depth, how deep do we need? Let me get this up to here. With regard to the depth, how deep do we need to make them? Now, the hinges that we are going to be splicing in here, they're very, very slight already. You know, the fact is we're going to be putting new hinges over, so I want a little bit of meat here, but I also want to make sure that our screws that hold our hinges are biting into the existing lining. So we're only going to take out a margin there, probably about 4 or 5 mil. So the majority of our screw is into the new or into the existing door lining by the time we've routed our new hinges in. And we have made these slightly bigger because we're making them all the same, one template, one size pattress if you like, or block. It just simplifies things. So for the purpose of demonstration, I will do one by hand. So you would basically take the section that you're going to join in. And so there's this keep here. Now I know that there's not going to be another keep in this place. This is going to be basically just made good and painted. So I'm just going to take the edge of it with the old keep. I'm not going to create another shoulder. So you're just going to offer it over really carefully, score with a knife around it. If you're not confident, you could always pin it on and pull it off, but a decent sharp blade, you're just going to score around and then you're going to stay within those lines there. And then if you use a craft knife and just put it through gently, you can actually get a decent way in to give you a decent shoulder instead of trying to bash away with a chisel, because if you bash over a chisel, sometimes if it's hollow behind like this one, it's going to bounce. And this timber is dry, it's been here a long time, and it has a lot of bounce. So you don't want to do that. So by doing this and actually cutting through the grain, you can then just work across where it's at its strongest. And then we're just going to tease this down here, through that knife line that I put in, back to the bottom. That one again, down the grain, you can just, once you're confident and you're not going to go off like that, because you can see the grain, that wants to take me that way, then you can ease it out there. Then what you're working on then is just using a chisel. So, I'll just take the worst of it out first. And then we can just start paring it back to suit. This timber's almost like sawn timber, this stuff they use for door linings. It's got no consistency to it. You get hard bits, soft bits, and it's not particularly nice, but it's all right for what we need to do. We want to go about 4mm, 5mm, enough to get that piece of wood in to a shoulder and glued. And so like a router, if you're using a router, it'd be simple because the router would effectively be set the depth, goes through like that, no problem at all. So we'll get this worst of this off. It's really wiry, really horrible timber. It feels sort of just like it snaps. And the name of the game, using a wide chisel, you can feel when you're nice and flat. And it's when you're nice and flat, you've got good surface area for all that glue, then you're in a position to think, okay, let's glue our block in. So what we've got is, I've got 3 palm routers set up, and they've all got a similar cutter in, and they're all going to do similar jobs. However, the reason I've got the 3 set up is because we've got a lot of these to do. We want to get them done efficiently and quickly, and there's 2 of us working as a team, so Ed and I are working together. Ed will go around, he'll mount on the first template. This is the one that we use to show you can do it by hand, by multi-tool. Now we're going to be using this for the router, and for the first cutter, we're using a template cutter which has a fairly decent length of cut. That will allow us to get down to the depths we need for the various bits that we're cutting out, okay? So all of the blanks are exactly the same, and they obviously fit into the template here, allowing for a bit of glue. And then I've got another jig here, which I'm going to mount on. Again, it'll be fixed where the stops will go, so there's no filling of those holes. So this is one I've actually got done here. I'll film one to show you what's what. But there's one there. And I'm using this router cutter, which is a little bit shorter, and that's facing it off. So I'm setting that up to the depth. I'm mounting this on here, setting up to the depth, and trimming it all back nice and flat. So again, that saves a lot of time. So step 1 is, I'm going to do this hinge up here. So I'm going to mount this on, which is basically our template. I've got it drilled from both sides, so I can use it here, I can use it here, obviously at the bottom. So we'll mount that on. Now it doesn't have to be mounted parallel, true, or anything like that. You know, you could use the edge of the door, but I'm taking out the least amount possible. I could take it right over to the shoulder line because the template cutter will actually follow that. So we'll just mount this straight on. That's where the doorstop will be. So I'm not damaging anything by screwing this in unnecessarily. So we'll just screw this on. Nice and secure. That's the first job. So we're going to be taking out, because this is where the hinge is going to go, the new hinge is going to go here. We don't want to take too much out of here. We want the screw to bite into the lining behind. So we're going to set this depth somewhere around about 4 or 5 millimeters. So if I just take that up to there, that is absolutely perfect. Lock that off. That's effectively what we're taking out. I'll pop the dust extraction. It's a little bit more cumbersome because you've actually got a hose now, but for purpose of demonstration, we'll do that. It actually helps you hold the router. It's a good little piece of kit. It's just easy to pop in and pop out. And that's it, and it does get rid of a lot of dust. Some ear protection, of course. You know I like my ear protection. You spend all your life doing jobs like this without ear protection, you are going to be in trouble by the time you hit 30. There's a famous story I've told about this, but I'm not going to tell it now. Just check back through some of my videos if you want to find out more. Okay, so I'm going to start with the router here. Dust extraction. It's not a corded tool, so I have to turn on manually. Sorry about the noise, but let's get cracking. Ed will get some close-ups hopefully of that. now taken it out to the depth we want it. Now all we've got to do is clamp and glue one of our blanks in, which is basically the relief of that. We'll clamp that in and glue that in there. And then we clean it off. But what I might do for the hinges is just reduce these slightly so we're cleaning less off, because we've got plenty of stock on there. Now that router is set to depth, we can pretty safely halve these, so we get 2 for 1. If I mark that there, we only really need that piece there. So we'll reduce this down and glue them in. That'd be absolutely perfect. Just give that a little tap. Pop the clamp on, a little clamp for now. Get a rag. Right, so we'll go around and get them to that stage, then we'll clean them up. So by having the routers and those simple jigs, it's been super quick to actually get through this and get all of those blanks glued in, clamped. There's some over here glued, ready for cleaning off. There's another one up there. And I just think that take a bit of time, you know, 10, 15 minutes to set out a jig, cut it out, make your blanks from the jig. So I've drawn around the jig to make the blanks, which is the bits we're putting in. Ed's over there now, he's basically gluing the next ones in. And we're having lunch. When we come back from lunch, we'll be able to clean them all back because that glue will be holding absolutely fine. We're not using any mechanical fixings at all because we don't want to sort of hit those fixings as we clean them back. So some years ago when I was younger, we would pop a panel pin through or something like that and punch it under as we clean it back and keep punching it under. But sometimes you'd forget and you'd catch it with your plane and then you're back on the oil stone for half an hour. Anyway, so that's that. We'll clean them all up. So there's a hive of activity while we clean all of these up. There's several ways of doing it. Ed's busy doing that. He's got a power plane to remove some of the actual stock or the waste. Then he's gone over with a hand plane to flatten it off here. So he's got this one nice and flat on the face, just with a hand plane. There's no sanding at the moment. Then you've got another template cutter, but this time it's a bottom guided. So the bearing here is going to follow the door lining to trim it off. So if you give that one a go, mate, take your time. Don't worry about the camera. So that's taken the worst of it off, and now it's just a matter of taking a plane to it and just teasing it off to the, that's it, a couple of hits with a plane. And then the arrows, match it off, and there we have it. It's a good job. So Ed's just done that one pretty much like the old-fashioned way, taking the worst of it off, but you can also do it with the router. So I've also got here, what I'm going to do now, so if I just set the tripod here, and let me take you through it. I've reduced it by just running the handsaw down here, just to take it off, take the fat out of it. I've got a small section of material with a slot in it here. I'm just going to fix this on, screwed where the door lining is going to be, here. Now what we've got is, on this palm router, we've got a small template cutter, bearing guided, but all we've done is set that to the thickness of this, which is going to clean this material straight back. So I'll do that now. So that's taken that back to the paint effectively, flush to the paint. So we'll just whip this off. We'll take the other router with the bottom guided cutter on it, and we'll do exactly the same here as Ed just did there. So we're just going to do this one now with this cutter, so the bearing's at the bottom, so it's going to follow the door lining and take this off exactly where I want it. And that's cleaned me off there. All I've got to do now is take my small block plane and just clean this face back there. A little rub over the top here, if there's anything to come off. And what you find is it just looks like it was part of the original door lining. There we go, run the arrows off there. So they're ideal now for getting ready, priming the door lining back up the edge and getting the next job done, which is put the hinge recesses in for hanging the doors.